Well, whatever. Cut out the title and everything, but good enough. I just wanted a picture of one of Cancer's albums instead of Voivod. Makes a little more sense, you know.
Nice. All right, cool. We're live. I'm gonna
All
go
right.
ahead and do the intro since now I know how to do sound. So
Very important.
yeah, with help. All right, here goes nothing.
All right.
It's time for Red Salad Review with your hosts, Wayne New, Greg Narlow, and Lou Mack.
How was that?
That was awesome. It worked.
Oh, I did it. Yes.
Woo!
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Rod Side Review. We are your hosts, Greg Noggle and Lou Mavs. The usual suspects of Manny and Wayne and Stan will not be joining us tonight because for some reason, well, Wayne has his reasons, but for the other guys, they didn't listen to the album. So
No, it's too heavy for them. They're not in it to the gory end like we are.
Catman, roll the effing intro. These puppets are oh so grotesque. Blame
They, they
Wayne. It was his idea, Catman.
they look pretty good though. I mean, well, realistic anyway. They look like us.
My jaw is not that big, even with the beard.
Well,
Like,
save it
come
for the
on.
semantics, please. Nah, we might as well rip on Wayne a little bit since he's not here. Come
Oh
on.
God, Wayne posted this video today. Not in this video, this photo. He's like, he says he has a not terrorizer, a terrifier shirt for every day of the week. And I said, "How that's fitting. You have the same hairstyle as Art the Clown." Then he gave me a sad face.
Can probably act just about as well too. So
Wait a minute. I like David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. He doesn't say anything. He just grins and kills.
I'll be honest with you. I've never seen 2 and 3, which I hear are a lot better, but I didn't care for the first one. I
Two
didn't.
is my favorite of the three films. I recommend it.
Okay, I'll check it out. Since you recommended, I will. You know,
Thank you. That's a King Diamond reference. I love the intro, one of the best I've seen. What King Diamond reference? We were talking Terrifier, but
well, actually, Catman, I believe Wayne originally decided to do the puppets not because of King Diamond and the Puppet Master, but to mess with me because I am not a big fan of Metallica's Master of Puppets. Really do not think it's a good album, but
I mean that in itself is a subject for an entirely episode, an entirely single episode on its own. Um, I like you think I prefer Ride the Lightning to Master of Puppets, and people think I'm crazy for saying that. I'm like, no,
eh,
it's just my preference.
yeah, I mean, it's my preference, but honestly, Master is pretty much a carbon copy of Ride the Lightning, and it's got a little bit more of a commercial bent to it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the songs are less interesting.
I have to admit, I am not a fan of the song Leper Messiah. Like, I think that's just a song that, you know,
Leper Messiah is a definite throwaway track. I can't stand Sanitarium. I think that's one of the worst songs they ever wrote.
oh, you mean you don't appreciate the Tom Sawyer reference in the bridge? Da
No.
da da da. It's like, come on.
And then there's one of them, I can't remember which one it is right now, but one of them definitely has the riff to Sweet Home Alabama as the basis for it.
I thought that was Four Horsemen off Kill 'Em All.
No, no, Four Horsemen, I think, is a
Bump
slowed
bump.
down version
Ba-da,
of
bump, bump.
maybe. I don't know. I can't remember now. It's been too long.
Well, everyone's ripped off
Yeah.
everyone somehow. I mean, it's funny. Like Wayne and I did an interview last Tuesday with Andy and Al from Be Cool or Be Podcast Out, and they asked me as a question about the song "The Demon's Alive" on the new Severed Angel album, and he asked me, "Did you purposely set out to like, play the same riff as Randy Rhoads?" I'm like, "What?" Like, I and then
It
I
just
thought of
seeps in, man.
it's what
It just seeps in.
I, but I wasn't even thinking Crazy Train when I wrote the riff. That's the funny thing. It's like influence seeps in. The only thing is, don't be blatant about it. Like
You know
that's
what's funny though?
was that.
If you didn't say that, I would have never picked up on that.
Oh, you heard the album.
Yeah.
Oh, well, did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it.
Cool, thanks.
Yep. It's a really good record, but yeah, I gotta buy it from your Bandcamp. That's all.
All right, we only got a few copies left, but thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But we're not here today to talk about Severed Angel. We're here to shoot the shit on a
Cancer.
brand new album that hasn't come out yet, and we're very excited that we're very happy and grateful that Peaceville Records. I'm assuming it was Peaceful who sent you the record.
Yep. Well,
Peaceful.
cancer's management. I thank you very much, Austin Griswold. That's my contact through Peaceville, and God, I want to say the management is called Silver Linings or something like that. But anyway, he's a real cool guy.
Yeah. So shout out to Austin. Thank you for sending Greg the new album from the seminal death metal band Cancer and their new album Inverted World, which is coming out on Peaceful Records a little later this year,
April 25th.
a little later this month.
Yep.
All right.
That's why I really wanted to get this done because one, it's coming out soon, and two, it's Voyage. I mean, it's a classic right off the bat. This just blew me away.
So, this was your recommendation, and I'm grateful that you got one of your recommendations in because I really enjoyed this. What was it that got you into the band Cancer?
Actually, it was the cover art of Death Shall Rise, their second album, which is behind me here. Jesse, my old longtime good friend, who was my buddy Adam that passed, unfortunately, little brother. He
Rest
was
in
big
peace.
into metal too, and he got me into a lot of this more extreme metal bands, especially grindcore and death metal. And Cancer was one of the ones he had a poster of Death Shall Rise. And I'm like, oh, dude, can I borrow that? And I mean, the blast beats and just the intensity and the rawness of Hung, Drawn, and Quartered, which is the opening track. I was like, I love this. This is amazing. And then, of course, James Murphy played lead guitar on that album. And James Murphy is just a virtuoso.
He played on my favorite Testament album, The Gathering.
He played on my favorite Testament album too, but it's low.
Okay. So we both admit our favorite Testament albums do not feature Alex Skolnick.
No, well,
I mean, Alex is a great guitar player, but I just like the songs on The Gathering better than like on The Legacy or Practice What You Preach. Again, it's personal taste.
Alex is a great guitar player, and a lot of it is personal taste. But the other side of that too is Testament was not a very interesting band during their early years. They very much rode the coattails of the scene around them. Not that they were wholly unoriginal. They just didn't do a lot to stand out from the pack.
Well, they were like, I guess you could say, like a second wave California thrash band. They came in the wake of Metallica, Slayer,
if
and
Costco
Megadeth.
was around then, they would be Kirkland Metallica.
Wow. Okay, that is an interesting analogy.
Yeah. Not that they like directly sat and ripped them off or anything, except for maybe the ballad from Practice What You Preach. That's probably the most Metallica worship album I've ever heard. But I mean, they had some classics. Trial by Fire from the New Order is awesome. You got Over the Wall from the Legacy, which is a pretty good album in its own right. It's
Yeah.
just they'd have a couple great songs, and then the rest of the album would kind of tread the water and just have that Bay Area sound. And when Low happened, it was really fresh and really different.
And
Same with The
very heavy.
Gathering. Yes.
You know, and I actually have to admit, my fandom of the band Testament jump started from Gathering onwards, but I went back and I really liked Low and I like Demonic, but I like the stuff that they're putting out now. Like, you know, but you know, again, we're jumping off subject. I apologize. We're just referencing James Murphy, who played in Testament and also was Cancer's guitarist at one point, who again, phenomenal guitar
Yep.
player.
And along with Death and Obituary, all kind of around that same time period. And Death Shall Rise was even produced at Morris Sound, even though Cancer is a UK band based in Spain right now, but I'll get to that shortly.
Weren't they associated with the band Agent Steel at one point, or am I thinking of something different?
Believe you're thinking of a different band.
Okay, I take it back then. Never mind.
I think so anyway. I have to look that up now because honestly, I love Cancer and I've followed them throughout the years. I even really like Black Faith from '95, which was more of an alternative album that
I
pissed a
meant
lot of people off. But
I meant to ask you about that. Apparently, I read that that got a lot of mixed reviews. It's very polarizing.
that is an album you can file under because I didn't really have the internet at the time. I didn't know I was supposed to hate this
Oh,
because to me, it was just a new Cancer album that I hadn't seen. And I was like, oh, cool. I've never heard of this one, Black Faith. And I popped it in. I'm like, okay, it's not death metal, but it's still pretty cool.
hmm. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Unfortunately, for me, this is the first Cancer album I've ever listened to from start to finish. And honestly, it's made me want to look into their back catalog. Again, Cancer was never one of those bands that I was exposed to, similar to like when we were discussing the Halloween discography. My first exposure to them was their covers album, which Wayne's
Mhm.
response to that was, "What the hell is wrong with you?" You know, it's just I feel ashamed now that I never was exposed to them, and it's only made me want to really go back into the well and see what else they've done because I really liked this album a lot. And you know, when it comes to death metal, you know, you think Obituary, you think Cannibal Corpse. If you're from Long Island, you think Suffocation. And you know, everyone says that well, Suffocation was responsible for that slam movement within death metal, and you know, they influenced deathcore and stuff like that. And you know, I got nothing against a lot of those bands. Like, I mean, I love Whitechapel. You know, I even love some old Cannibal. The only thing is, um, what I really like about Cancer is that they play traditional. I feel even bad calling it traditional, but it's well written death metal within the context of not just songwriting but also vocal performance. I can actually understand what he says, and it
Yes.
doesn't sound like you know, like after a while that really gets old.
No, that was actually because, at the time, listening to cassettes and then later burning CDs, I was younger. I couldn't go to the store and buy a ton of this stuff in tandem. I didn't have the cheddar, so to speak. So that was one of the things I loved about John Walker. It was a nice guttural growl, but like with Tom Warrior from Celtic Frost, I could make out the lyrics to where I could shout along to it. And, well, any of them early Morris Sound bands. And quite honestly, that's probably why I loved Cancer so much at first. Not that, even though they shared James Murphy with Death and Obituary, not that they were trying to sound like them, although Death Shall Rise was produced at Morris Sound. but it had a similar feel and was in the same type of way as what Death was putting out on like Scream Bloody Gore and Leprosy and Spiritual Healing. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. And now I guess, yes, old school death metal, but what I always love about Cancer and the fact that why I consider this one a classic. Yes, it's a back to the basics type album, but it's done right. It doesn't sound like they're trying to recreate To the Gory End or Death Shall Rise. It sounds like this is the album that would have been the logical follow up to Death Shall Rise. It's got them awesome, brutal meat hooks to the song that gets stuck in your head. And they could groove great. And, even back then, Carl Stokes, very fast, very aggressive drummer, but he could swing. And so could Ian Buchanan, who played bass. And John Walker has always been a great guitarist. To be honest with you, it's been so long without pulling out the album and looking at it, I kind of forget who played the lead parts on To the Gory End at this point. I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, Peaceville, but we're here to talk more so about the new album, not so much To the Gory End, although it is its 35th anniversary this year.
God, where does the time go? To think we grew up in an era where death metal was in its initial incarnation, and like how a lot of it's evolved or devolved if you don't like certain aspects of the subgenres within the main genre. But again, we're not here to talk about those bands. We're here to talk about Cancer. And it feels so weird saying that name. It really does. But I like Cancer. I can't believe I just said that. I like this album.
I love Cancer.
There you go. Now I don't feel so awkward. You took it a step above me. Thank you.
Oh, well, dude, I mean, the cover To the Gory End is a painting of the dude getting the machete through his face in Dawn of the Dead.
Why have I not paid attention all these years? I really need to find that.
And that's the other thing about this, it isn't like a lot of legacy bands do where they go back and try to recreate something. For example, one of their biggest songs was always Into the Acid from To the Gory End, which is just a great song, came off great live. And on here, they return to the theme with Corrosive, but Corrosive is a song that totally stands on its own. And quite honestly, I think will be their set closer for years to come. It's just such a great, powerful, catchy song. And another reason why I pretty much always stay towards the old school death metal type, and with bands like Cancer, Obituary Death especially, is, and then also like an analogy I made when I was talking to you and in the print review I wrote, they have that Sabbath, that bluish occult groove to them a little bit. Like 39 Bodies could be the son of Supernaut. Iommi and Butler would be proud, man.
It felt that way when I was listening to it. I mean, it's so nice to hear a band groove without them forcing it. It's like it, people say that, well, a lot of bands that groove, it's like, if they didn't listen to Pantera, they wouldn't know, what it means to groove. And again, cookie cutter stuff of things that came prior. But this sounds fresh to me, and it sounds organic and natural.
It does. And one of the most beautiful things about it that I absolutely love about this, and hang on, I got to bring up my notes on my phone right here because I want to give credit to both of them because they did an awesome job. Simon De Silva, or Simone, sorry, bud. I'm not from Spain. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, so we're going to go with Simon. But he recorded and produced it, and then it was mixed by V Santora. They totally get it because everything is super clear on here. Nothing overpowers the other instruments.
No,
it's not all 1,000 miles an hour, but it's not a soulless production. like the drums actually sound like drums. It doesn't sound like a drum machine, which is what I really dislike about a lot of modern death metal bands, because you can say what you want about how fast Napalm Death used to play, or even the blast beats on Cancer's first two albums, but you could always make out what they were doing, and they always sounded like real drums. It didn't sound like something from Pro Tools. And that is what I love about this. You can hear all the elements together, the melodies and the hooks and the bridges, they go from that groove into a blast beat that is just perfectly placed. I mean, I literally love every song on this album. There's
Yeah,
obviously some that are more catchy. Like, if you guys haven't heard it yet, please go on YouTube and watch the lyric video for Amputate,
great
because
one.
it is just an amazing tune and so catchy. I
I
mean,
I really like Jesus for Eugenics, and obviously 39 Bodies, we mentioned that. Amputate and When Killing Is a Murder, I would have to say, are standout tracks for me as well. But Enter the Gates until they died. It's like, talk about a 1-2 opening punch.
Enter the Gates excited me just as much as the first time I heard Hung, Drawn, and Quartered from Death Shall Rise. That's what I mean. I titled my review "The Old Gods Return," and they totally do here. And that's nothing against 2018 Shadow Gripped or 2019's Ball Cutter EP, which both featured Ian Buchanan on bass and Carl Stokes on drums, the original members with John Walker, who was also a co-founder. But I feel like they're reborn here, like Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. They now, granted, there it was just Ronnie coming in and changing everybody's spirits, and they could write a different way because he sung differently. But these four guys play so amazingly tight together. There is not one wasted note on this entire album, and they sound like they're having an absolute blast doing it.
Yeah, I noticed one thing about their history is that there was a period twice in their career where they had broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I was looking up their bio, I found it interesting that John is the sole original member that's still around. So, do you have any backstory to that?
I do not. I don't know a whole lot about what led to the recent split and why he reconvened in Spain in 2022 with new members here.
I would
Um,
assume he owns the name then, if he could do that.
Most likely
Okay.
at I almost hate to say it, but that wasn't really super important to me. I was just excited to hear they were
No,
doing a new album because, ah, God, I love Carl Stokes and I love Ian Buchanan, and it's nothing against their playing. And as much as I liked those two previous ones, it kind of seemed like it was time for a change. Something just seemed like it wasn't 100% working. They're still good. They're still really good albums and an EP. But I don't know. I feel like change was necessary because John has the vision in the head. Not that he was the only visionary in the band, but I really feel like he knew exactly what he wanted to do and just needed to reconvene with some people that had some fresh ideas or fresh playing with his style. Hopefully, he's able to do an interview with me here and I can get him on Rat Salad. I'm waiting to hear back, but those are questions I would love to ask him.
yeah, no, that would be great. And when that time comes, should we interview him, I definitely want to have more of a backstory to cancer. Because again, as as much as I like this album, I feel bad that it's the only one that I've really heard from start to finish. So for me coming into this with a completely fresh approach to, I don't want to call them a heritage band, but I would say a classic band that I've yet to hear, and to hear this as, my exposure to them, their most recent record, uh, you can imagine how impressed I was because I was really looking for something in it to not like, and I couldn't
Wow.
find a thing. I mean, it's very rare where an album can get my attention from start to finish. And I'm not saying that as a guy who records on his own, I don't think I'm king shit at all, but everyone's always putting out records. And there's one thing I can't stand is when bands say, oh, it's the best thing we've ever done. Oh, it's better than our last record. It's yeah, okay,
Yeah,
you're
I
saying
hate
that because
that.
you're trying to draw sales. I get that. But again, I walked into this fresh and you know, I I I was really impressed. I mean, and the one thing I liked about it, to add to what you were saying, that the sound of the record doesn't suffer, that the instruments sound like instruments. I think it's safe for me to say that this is the first digital release that I've heard where I heard no compression
None at
whatsoever.
all.
It sounded full, like the records of old. I forgot I
Exactly.
was listening to my phone as I was listening to it.
Me too. That was how I first listened to it too. I first streamed it on my phone, and I am like, I am blown away by how full and amazing this sounds right now. And I hurried home and streamed it and put my headphones on it. I've probably listened to this 10 times in the past week.
I mean, it sounded great in my car. It sounded great on my phone. It scared the crap out of my 6-year-old daughter. So it's effective.
That's funny.
Well, I had to listen to it. I have a
Oh,
job to do.
certainly. And hang on, I want to get these guys' names right. Just because Ian, John, and Carl I can name all day, but now it's Daniel Maganato on bass and Gabriel Valcazar on drums. As tight as they are and in the pocket, like really, it made me think of Butler and Ward. Like that's why I said Sabbath would be proud of this. And quite honestly, John and Robert Navajas, which is the lead guitar player, are so in tune with it too. This album is so tight. Zappa would have produced it if he was around.
um,
It could have been a backing band for him. I'll put it that way. If he played death metal.
um, so John Walker himself lives in Spain now all year round, or is this sort of like was this recorded? This was not
I
recorded remotely, was it?
No, I believe he is the band is based completely out of Spain, and so is he now. Although I wasn't able to find a lot of information on that. Don't know if it says it right here.
I
Yeah,
mean,
couldn't tell you.
yeah, that's okay. But I will say this though, the there were parts of it that were very jazzy to me, aside from the groovy percussive sound of it. Um, it's something you don't hear a lot in. It's something you don't hear in death metal, period.
No,
Because everyone's too concerned, I think, more with like playing fast or trying to be um lyrically vulgar, which again, that's cool if you're into that thing, but you know I I I don't need to hear an F bomb every other word,
right.
because my thing is it's like, you know in the context of a song, if you got to do that, you're really not saying much. um there's like there's really no profanity on this record at all, and it's devastating. And like, John's vocabulary as a lyricist, he was putting certain terms together I would have never thought I'd ever hear in the context of extreme music.
Oh, certainly. I mean, the test site alone is just, I mean, plenty of people have definitely sung about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, especially in metal in the past, but the allegories and the story he weaves through his lyrics is just mind-blowing with that.
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes, like I said, they return to the acid vat with corrosive, and of course they're still singing about existential horror and dismemberment because it's cancer, and that's still awesome. But they even touch on the cult mentalities and weaponized religion of today's world, and it just fits perfectly into the cancer frame. And as to what you were saying about how they play, one thing that really struck me about this, not outside of the tightness and the riffs and the scorching solos and everything, they kind of plug in to the dissonant thrashy styles a la Piggy from Voivod almost here. But they do it in such a way where it's distinctly cancer. Like, to me, it sounds like it couldn't be anybody else but, and it's this total new dimension, but it's woven in such a way where it's well placed and sounds amazing.
I really hope this album turns more eyes to them. I hope this opens them up opportunities to tour. Um,
Come to Minneapolis, please. Nobody ever does.
really, nobody. Oh, what was the name of that venue that was in uh Purple Rain? It was First Avenue, I think it's
First
called.
Avenue.
Is
Yeah.
that still around or is that
Oh,
gone?
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
First Ave's still there. It's like an institution around here. Yeah.
I'm glad you have that. We don't even have CBs anymore. It's hard. It sucks. But I mean, look, I just found out Machine Head's touring the States with In Flames and Unearth. That's a show where it's like after the co-headlining act is over, I'd walk out. I don't want to see Machine Head, but I would see Cancer.
Oh, I totally. I mean,
Wayne
hell,
hates me for hating Machine Head.
I have to get up at 4:35 o'clock every morning. But even if it was a weekday and Cancer didn't come on until 11 p.m., you'd be damn sure I'd be there until the end of the set.
That's the good old days. That's L'Amour's for me when Armored Saint didn't take stage until 12:30. Oh, those are the days. But good stuff. But yeah, man, like thank you for turning me on to this record because I feel really stupid that I never listened to them before. And I know you've
No,
mentioned
no problem.
Cancer as a band for as long as I think it goes as far back as the Coroner discography that we've done.
Yes,
Which
I
again
did
is
mention
another
that.
band that's extreme, but you can understand what they're saying.
Yep. And well, like I said, a big reason I love this so much and feel it, well, not just feel like it is, but it totally is a bona fide death metal classic. There's no two ways about it. It, even though it's a new trio behind John, it totally captures the Cancer spirit and their type of playing completely because they were always fairly tight.
Mm-hmm. But it kind of makes me wonder though, you know, will this inspire, I guess, future musicians to want to pursue a path in death metal that's more akin to what Cancer's doing, I guess more so than, what's popular today within, the genre itself, because like I admit there are some of the more modern death metal acts that I do like. Like, let me see if I can pronounce this correctly. Sanguisugabog. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know. I hope I did.
I have no idea. I've only ever seen it written, but I do know who you're talking about.
They were cool enough to have Trauma in one of their videos, so they're cool with me. Um, you know, um, and like I said, Whitechapel, um, and but then you have like other bands. I remember there was
Well,
any band that has to use Brie as like a vocal pattern in there, the Brie. No, none of y'all. None of y'all.
Well, Gate Creeper is a well, granted they formed in like 2015, but they're a newer death metal band that I love that plays in the old school style. Maniacal Force here from Minneapolis is another one that just totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those are the two best examples I can really think of. But yes, I hope this album inspires everybody
Well, I mean,
to not only get into Cancer's music, but just, hey, this is the way to do it.
I'm not gonna lie, it already gave me ideas on stuff to write for the next Severed Angel album. So
And
and I was like, I can't believe something inspired me to like, and I recorded it and I sent it to Alex, my singer, and he's like, that's the best shit you've written. I'm like, oh, thanks. I've only been writing with you for 4 albums already. Whatever.
yeah, but you just heard Cancer now, so you should have
Yes,
been you should have been listening
I
to them this
I
whole time.
I should have. I should have. Suffocation's not the be all end all. Sorry, Long Islanders, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I like
No,
Suffocation, don't get me wrong, but this album is the shit.
yes. And yeah, Shadow Grip, Ball Cutter, like I said, that's all great too. Admittedly, the early 2000s when they were kind of floating around with some more Fear Factory based type stuff on the Corporations EP and all that. It felt a little lost to me, but who
Mm,
wasn't during that time period is kind of how I feel, from bands like that. But point being, there was still good stuff on them records.
yeah.
They still knew how to write tunes and they carried on well. And, you know, I don't
Well,
want to say this is back to the beginning because they've always distinctly been Cancer. This is just this amazing milestone, their seventh album. That this record could take the Pepsi challenge with any death metal record I love from the early '90s, not just Cancer's. I would put this up against Spiritual Healing,
mm,
Cause of Death. That beats the hell out of anything Deicide ever did, but that's a story for a
we
different
won't talk about the side, but
day.
I have my own problems with them, but regardless, and it's not to do
but
with their lyrical content. Um, they're they played at the Sundance in Bayshore, an old school club on Long Island, like back in the day. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: there's still a pamphlet going around of the time where on the same show you had Faith No More, Soundgarden, and Voivod on the same bill.
oh yeah, I would have loved to have been at one of those shows. That's one of the best lineups I've ever heard, honestly.
So, I had friends of mine currently in the band, the Ice Cold Killers, which you could call them sort of like a Motorhead-ish type punk band. They're really great. Um, back in the day, there was they were playing like hardcore and things like that, and one of the bandmates, the drummer, his brother ended up getting paralyzed in the pit because some guy decided to step on his head when he was crowd surfing.
Oh,
So apparently Glenn Benton said something to like, uh something to the avail of Jesus and cock and that kid. And I was like, all right, that's a dick move, no pun intended. So fuck them anyways. But the one other thing I wanted to mention about what I read, they were one of the few death metal bands to actually have an album on a major label. They were on West Records at one point.
yep, The Sins of Mankind, their third album, which is also great. Oh, how do I say this? Because
Be honest. I mean,
it's well, I feel like everybody's thing is, oh, they lightened it up or they decided to do this, but it's not like they went corporate. They just kind of increased the trajectory of what they were writing into a different worldview. And The Sins of Mankind, I will say, is thrashier than the first two. which I believe is what led to it being a little bit more popular sales wise and got them on the major label East West Records.
I guess the question to ask, which would better pose an answer, is was the quality of the music in the album for it being on a major label, was it high standard?
I think
Because
so. I
because
really do.
because it's very rare where a band gets assigned to a major label and they get to recreate or reproduce the same sound that they did when they were, putting out stuff on their own or putting out stuff on independent records. I mean, I remember
So
when Sick of It All was on East West Records. I still like them. I mean, do I prefer, more like It's Clobbering Time or something else? Sure, but it doesn't deplete, how much I like the band. I still wear their windbreaker. I'm 45, 44 years old. So what?
yeah. And no, Black Faith doesn't really sound like the first three at all. It's a total left turn, but I mean that's what makes it beautiful is that the three of them worked great together as songwriters and they brought their talents to a different style. And I think to me, it works out brilliantly. It just doesn't sound like the first three like everybody wanted it to. But I would much rather them do what they did and go in a different direction and turn out something different, yet equally impressive that still says we're Cancer, like Coroner did with Grin, another album that I love that a lot of people hate.
I love that album.
Then just sit there and try to remake To the Gory End or Death Shall Rise like 8 or 9 times. Like
Well,
Cannibal Corpse, for example, I loved up through Vile. After that, they just started making the same album over and over and over. And
Death Metal
Cancer
ACDC, I
has,
got it.
yeah, and Cancer has never done that, even as much as this has in common, because again, it's them, it's their sound. They're locked into this as much as Inverted World has in common with the first two. It isn't a rehash and it's brutally fresh.
See, I agree with you. I like it when a band tries to evolve with their sound. I'm not a fan of, rehashing what you've already done. I can't stand it when bands go back and re-record, stuff. I mean, I get the reason why some of them do that. It's because they don't have control over their masters, so they do this as a way to recoup some of those lost funds. I get that, but I don't know. To me, um, I go with how I remember it, and that's just how I am. But if I can respect a band like Cancer, where you're telling me that no two albums sound alike, but this album is a continuation of where they were going prior to their major label album. Um, I can respect that. I don't think there's anything wrong with going back to a proverbial well. Um,
No.
I think that I think it's important. I I don't like the idea of rehashing the same shit over and over again just to you know sell anything, you know.
Mhm.
And I feel that way about movies too, you know. And
Mhm.
because I didn't realize upon watching them, a lot of sequels are really just rehashes of the first film. And as a cinephile, that pisses me off. Give me something different, give me something better.
Well, it's worth watching the Leprechauns one though, just to hear Warwick Davis's different jokes. I will say that.
Uh, I've never watched any Leprechaun film.
You have to watch 3 where he's in Vegas.
In fact,
Trust me, watch it.
I'll watch that if you watch Terrifier 2.
Certainly will.
All right, cool. Let's just go to the chat. Let's see. Catman, I'm with Lou. I'm not a huge Metallica fan. Catman, you still on that? Either prefer Ride the Lightning, much prefer all the heavier shit from mid 80s and Venom. And he also says Faith No More in a Bar was one of my top 10 loudest shows I have seen. Crushingly loud. Uh, hmm. I wonder if it had to have been with Mike Patton, not with Chuck Mosley. That's what I'm thinking.
I would think so. The loudest show I have ever seen was Heaven and Hell in 2010. I mean, Sabbath is always loud in general, but good Lord, I couldn't hear for 2 days after that.
You mean 2009, right? That summer tour they did with Coheed and Cambria?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
That's
I've done
funny.
a lot of drugs, man, you know.
It's all good. Hey. That's all right. We keep it real though on Rat Style Review. So you don't know if some of these people in the audience or the chat are like, I'm like, okay, let's correct ourselves before they jump on our throats. But to this day, loudest band I've ever seen, Motorhead. I'm in the nosebleeds at Jones Beach. And it was the 2008 Metal Masters tour. So it was Priest, Heaven and Hell, Motorhead, and Testament. I felt like I was standing in front of Lemmy's amp, and I was all the way at the top. I mean, Motorhead was telling the truth. Everything louder than everyone else, and they were the second band. I remember seeing them at Irving Plaza, loud, at WWE The World, very loud, because I was right in front. I was standing right in front of Mickey D's drum set, and man, those double kicks, no lie.
But as great as that might be, doesn't hold a candle to the blast beats on this album.
No, seriously, I got to give it up to this drummer. I really hope Gabriel. I hope he gets some. He has the credibility. He played amazingly well. Let's just hope that he gets some, eyes on him for one of the best recorded drums on any album this year. I sincerely doubt that was any plugin that made him sound that good.
There's no way, and I think that's one of the best things about it is it isn't enhanced with anything.
No, and the cymbals sound crisp. I know that sounds like a very fickle point to make, but I don't know. It was just something about the way the rhythm section just fit perfectly well, and and the guitars didn't clash. And again, you can understand what John was saying, and this is good music, man. I mean, not just death metal. I mean, music in general. I'm not expecting to hear it on the radio anytime soon. Because I'm thinking about, I'm like, this can't be played on the radio. There's no commercial appeal behind it. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay, because I don't listen to the radio anyway.
I have to say, though, stuff like Amputate, Enter the Gates totally deserves to be on radio and could be. I believe it's so catchy. And, we've all had to suffer through To the Window, to the Walls. I worked construction for years and couldn't change the radio station. I had to listen to that just about every day.
I'm not gonna lie.
I deserve some cancer on radio.
Okay. There was a point in time where
fair enough, but that one's annoying enough, and I'm not going to sit here and admit I've sat through Backstreet Boys songs.
You have my sympathies. Trust me. I still have to sit through Backstreet Boys songs. And then just to annoy my wife and kid, I will put on Get Low by Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. Just because it's so vulgar. Yeah. Thank you, Dave Chappelle, for that.
Oh, indeed. But no, seriously though, I know I keep going back to 39 Bodies, even though Amputate's the single, but Amputate is very catchy in its own right. But I mean, a lot of the leads on here, even as scorching as the solos are, honestly, Inverted World, the title track itself, to me, I know I used the term meat hook to be kind of a wise ass, but it is.
I appreciate it.
And to me, it's just as catchy as, say, Billy Squires' A Stroke. I really think if people were more open-minded with the radio, these would have the potential to be chart toppers. That is how well it's played and how good the songwriting is.
I get that, but you notice it's like when the biggest advocate for quote unquote hard rock and heavy metal, who is Eddie Trunk, and again I'm gonna put him on blast again,
Mhm.
but not like his fanboys will rat me out, because chances are we don't cater to that demographic anyways. Um, you know, his musical tastes do not expand past 1989. So
No, they don't.
for
And
him to give a platform to any band of the modern era, I think is beneath him. And he's supposedly the biggest advocate, or the biggest public advocate, for the genre of music that we love. And yeah, we like music in general, but metal is, metal and hard rock is the music that we mostly talk about on the show, because it's something that we love, and it's something that really doesn't get much attention in the mainstream. So we're happy to cater to that niche market. But again, if you're supposedly the biggest advocate for this in a public forum, well, why are you not advocating for it?
and unfortunately, I feel like that's very common in the rock and metal world in general. Like, okay, I absolutely love Inverted World. It is a classic, like I was saying, but there was nothing wrong with 2018 Shadow Gripped or 2019 Ball Cutter EP. I totally recommend buying that as well. But you seem to get these people, and what kills me is a lot of them seem to be even younger than my little brother bitching about, oh, well, it doesn't sound exactly like To the Gory End. Isn't that great? What happened to these three guys? They used to be so good. It's like, dude, they're still putting out a good album. It doesn't need to be a carbon copy of this. But then again, that's also where I was going to say, there's also seems to be a lot of resistance to newer bands. But excuse me, a simple fact with that is, especially with a lot of these revivals, I notice it more in thrash metal than death metal. But a lot of these guys, and there's nothing wrong with it, because as a musician, Lou, like you were saying about the Ozzy lick a little bit ago, or the Randy Rhoads lick, excuse me.
If it came off Bark of the Moon, I would have called it a
you
Jakey Lee lick.
you want to pay tribute to your heroes, and yes, you're going to incorporate that into your sound, but there seems to be this obsession with a lot of these revival bands in metal that they have to sound exactly like Metallica, or they have to sound exactly like Slayer. And I'm not saying they're not putting hard work into it, but it comes off a little disingenuous and boring to me,
I agree.
because they're trying too hard to sound like that without bringing their own into it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I remember there was a point in time, that first time I saw Motorhead, um, Scarhead was the band that was opening up for them, and they were a New York hardcore band out of Jackson Heights.
Mhm.
A year later, I was in accounting with Warren Lee, who at the prior to being a tech for Vision of Disorder, Hatebreed, and Slayer and Testament, he was the bassist in the band 25 to Life. So, I never associated myself within any clique within hardcore, because I knew if I did that, I would have gotten my ass kicked. You're not DMS unless you're DMS, Doc Martin Skins. And that goes back to the 80s. And I admit I was a fan of the music. I loved going to support the bands at the shows, but I wasn't going to try to say that I was something that I wasn't. So
Certainly.
I remember we, Warren and I, we were having a cup of coffee during our 30-minute break. And I was like, you know, I remember I was talking to him about Scarhead, and I said, that's Ezek from Crown of Thorns from the New York Hardcore documentary. And he's like,
Mhm.
yeah, man, there's nobody that works harder than that guy. And I was like, wow, if Warren is telling me that no one works harder than Ezek to make sure he puts out good music that people could slam dance to, I got to give respect to that. But then around that time, you know, that I was talking with Warren and I saw Scarhead, you know, what was the popular music at the time that was coming out? And it was new metal. And I
Mhm.
remember we had this conversation how like some of the bands that got lumped in with that genre, I feel was unfair. I didn't think it was fair that Seven Dust got lumped in. I didn't think it was fair that Deftones got
Yeah.
lumped in. Just my opinion. And then Crazy Town came out of nowhere. And again, I know Seth Binzer passed away recently. You know, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, rest in peace. But I couldn't stand them then and I couldn't stand them now.
John, if you're watching this, I sincerely apologize. We mentioned Crazy Town
John
in an
who?
episode about cancer. John Walker.
John, I sincerely apologize, but the point I'm trying to make is the comparison between genuine and disingenuine.
Yes.
There was nothing about their music that I thought was genuine. And for anyone that tries to tell me otherwise, please kindly go fuck yourselves.
Oh,
This
certainly.
album by Cancer has more heart, skill, guts, balls, brains than anything that era of music ever tried to pass off.
Oh, certainly. And it's even kind of funny just speaking of people's eccentricities about what would make them not want to get into a band. Even as I was getting into cancer and as much as I love them and as good as they are, it's funny because a couple of my friends at the time are like, oh, they're not actually from Florida. They're from Britain. Oh, I don't know. Like, what?
Are you gonna piss
They
on
recorded
Carcass
at
for being
Morris
British?
Sound. Who the hell cares if they're from Florida or not? Like, Tampa isn't the be all end all of death metal. I
No.
mean, when Cancer recorded their first demo, no fucking cover, none of that shit was even around except for Death's first couple of albums.
Dear God. I mean, there are a lot of British bands from the
Well, and it all
from
springs from Sabbath. Who was British, you know?
point exactly taken. And Priest, don't forget and Priest. You know, from the same town of Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, look, regardless of what you may think, Birmingham was the birthplace of metal. It was, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so of course it wouldn't be an incorrect statement or an unfair standard to say British bands that came in the wake of Sabbath and Priest had to step their game up and do something original and something good to stand out. You know, I give all the credit in the world to Carcass. I give all the credit in the world to Cancer just from this one record alone. You know, I don't know how you feel about Cradle of Filth. I love their old shit. Um, you
I
know,
don't dislike them. They were just never really my thing. I like a couple of the older albums from like mid 90s, maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cruelty and the Beast was my favorite.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly what my favorite one is called. I could not remember the name. It's been years since I listened to it. Oh, fun fact, Cancer's first demo that I was just talking about was it Steve the singer or Stevie Young himself? I
It
think it
was
was Stevie
Stevie
Young
Young,
himself from the Starfighters that produced it, who is
currently the
Pastor
rhythm
Malcolm's
guitarist in
nephew.
ACDC.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a comparison. I was like, oh
Also
my,
recorded in Birmingham.
there you go. This shit doesn't write itself. It just happens.
No, it doesn't. And oh, Witch Hunt. That's the other song from To the Gory End you need to listen to immediately. Sorry, a little all over the place here.
No, that's
So
fine.
I suppose this isn't the best live review we've ever done because I'm totally fanboying out, but
Hey, you know what?
so good.
You know something. It's very rare where we get to talk about a band that we really haven't talked about on Ratsai Review. You know, I get it. A lot of the viewers they like it when we talk about Kiss. They like it when we talk about Maiden. They like it when we talk about Megadeth, and that's great and all that. But you know, one of the things that I love about the show when I'm talking with you is that you expand us to bands that are outside of the norm who deserve Time in the Sun, Corner being the prime example. Um, I think what I contribute is that I admit that there's a lot of some of the newer stuff that I do like.
Mhm.
And, you know, I may have my gripes about production, this and that. I got gripes about the production on Blizzard of Oz, and I love that album, even though I
Certainly.
think Diary of a Madman is a superior album. But, uh, I'll continue to wave the flag for bands like Periphery and After the Burial and Whitechapel and Animals as leaders. Absolutely. Even Sanguisugabog. There, now I pronounced it correctly. you know, um, I think it's good to be open minded. I mean, when I was a college, no, actually after I was a college radio DJ, when I was started working in MTV in on air broadcast operations,
Mhm.
um, there were so many people that I grew up with. They were like, "Hey man, you got to bring back Headbangers Ball, man. We need more Pantera and Slayer, man." I'm like, dude, shut up. It's like it's Headbangers Ball dead. Okay, Pantera, Slayer,
Sure.
move on.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's even like death metal as much as I love it. And even as they're discovering things from back then, if they do know Cancer, all they know is Death Shall Rise because James Murphy was on it. And it's like they don't bother with anything else. Or if they've got one Morbid Angel album, it's Covenant because God of Emptiness was on MTV. And
On
they're
Beavis and Butthead. Yep.
yeah, just delve deeper. I mean, there is just a wealth of this great stuff that might not have necessarily made it to the mainstream, but are legends in their own right.
I think the unfortunate thing is that people are just by nature lazy,
Indeed.
and they're looking to be exposed to it from a major mainstream um, source. I'll give you an example. I love this band. I know you can't stand them.
Mm-hmm.
I love Ghost's music. However, I can understand how there can be a resentment towards them because it's like, they're being elevated based on their image and their theatrical performance with nothing else behind it that holds substance. I get it. I'm a music fan. So for me, the music takes precedence over the image and the theatrical show. But I get it because this is what gets shoved down people's throats and they start wearing the freaking makeup and they're like, but do you really like the music?
No.
You know?
Yeah, probably not. And I mean, let's face it, let's be honest here. If you're talking about if it has a good beat and good groove, if you could dance to it, you give me any soccer mom in the world. I get her a couple tequila shots, I guarantee she'll be grooving to amputate.
Did you get that from Green Jello?
Possibly at one point, though I haven't listened to Green Jello in
No, it's from the
probably.
serial killer video because they were doing that Whip Me Teenage Rape song. And they're like, it's got a good beat and you could dance to it. Too bad the band sucks, though. I was like, is that where you got it from? Or is that what they actually used to say on Club MTV back in the day?
I probably got it from there, but it's like so far back and so deep in the back of
No,
my head,
dude,
it's
you
just
just you
become a
triggered the memory.
saying I that I go with. But that's funny though. But point being, that's how catchy I feel like these tunes are and how masterful, you know. Like people might be a little resistant to, it's death metal. Yeah, but it's written great and it's masterful.
And you
And
can understand it. So
yeah,
stop bitching.
I'm telling you, I give them a couple tequila shots and take their VOA album away from them. I'll have them listening to Inverted World.
Well, we listen to it and we love it. And we think y'all should listen to Inverted World by Cancer too when that drops April 25th, which is in 1.5 weeks as we're recording this live on YouTube. So check it out. Thanks again to Peaceville Records and Cancer's management for sending this to Greg, who then forwarded to me.
Thank you
Um,
very much, guys, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to not only review it on the show here, but do a print review for it because it's just the bee's knees.
Definitely. And the motorcycle behind you agrees with you too.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we're gonna wrap it up on Ratsai Review, unless you have anything else you want to mention, Greg.
Just how beautiful the cover art is, because I didn't mention that.
As you can see behind me, it's cropped, but really, really, and that's not AI. That is so not AI.
No, that is an actual painting, and it's beautiful.
Definitely. We'll be back next week with the usual Motley crew. Not the sucky Motley crew, but we mean Wayne, Stan, and Manny, if we could get them out of the bar. Sorry, Manny, I threw you under the bus, but
Well, the tango competitions tonight, it's the annual one. I kind of get it.
Stop hanging out the Blue Oyster Bar. The women are not coming in. Anyways. But
that's High Tower and Drag, buddy. You remember that?
Sorry, couldn't help it.
Yeah. It's okay.
Anyways, so real quick, just want to promote the new Severed Angel album, When Eternity Ends. We've only got like 6 copies of these left on our Bandcamp. After that, you'll only be able to purchase the album digitally, because once they're gone, they're gone. The incentive to buy from us is, if you do, you will actually get a bonus track digitally, which is the first 2 tracks combined, which is actually the way that we had originally planned it. So Fall of Rain leads right into Through the Eyes of Time without any break in between. But regardless, owning a physical copy of this supports us. After it's sold out on our Bandcamp, the only places you'll be able to buy it are Amazon, Target, Rocks Records, and anywhere else that we have on our link tree, which is linktr.ee/Severed Angel. The good news is that if we sell out of this initial run of CDs, No Life Till Metal will not only reprint a second pressing, but they'll also put the album out on vinyl. And, it'd be cool to have something that we did on record, because we know that a lot of people out there prefer to listen to the music on vinyl than on CD or digital. So if that ain't incentive, I don't know what is. So go to severedangel.com and check it out. I wish I could promote ratsaireview.com, but Wayne didn't pay the bill and we don't have it anymore. But as always, thanks for listening on our streaming audio platforms, and thank you for watching us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock or 8-ish, depending on if we have no technical difficulties, which they're bound to happen, people. We're human.
It happens.
And Greg, thank you again for recommending this killer album.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could hip you to cancer. They are, man, that sounds so
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I never put a second thought into it until you just mentioned it. I'm like, okay, yeah. But yeah, no, totally. Whether you guys are new to the scene or dedicated metal maniacs, go check out Inverted World. And while you're on Peaceville's website, check out Shadow Gripped and Ball Cutter as well, and the classics. It's well worth checking out, fellas.
Yeah, shout out to Peaceville Records. They put out some of the best in metal, God, over the past 30 plus years. I mean, they have Catatonia on there. They have Cancer on there.
Autopsy.
Yeah, I think at one point, I think they had Agercock on there at one point.
Agercock, Dark Throne.
Yeah, so they know what they're doing when it comes to the bands that they sign. So, last quick in the message board from Catman. Later, guys. Thanks for making my work night more metal. Catman, it's guys like you who keep doing this show. So thank you for always checking us out, and thanks for watching this, everyone. And like Dennis Miller would say, we are out of here.
And like Bill Hicks would say, you stole that from me, you asshole.
He did?
Well, not that specifically, but yes, Dennis Leary stole quite a few, almost 75% of his bits from Bill Hicks.
But I said Dennis Miller, not Dennis Leary.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
The little nerd that was in Madhouse with John Larroquette and Kirstie Alley. Yeah, never mind.
The guy that makes jokes that go over everybody's head. Yeah. Anyways.
Oh yeah, that went over my head. I forgot it